son. Rolling with this one and that one, pulling out gas for fun. But it was just a dream for the team who was a fiend. Started smoking wools at 16 and running up in gates and doing hits for high stakes, making my way on 5 skates. No question I was speed for cracks and weed. The combination made my eyes bleed. No question I would flow off and try to get the flow off.
You bring the content, I'll bring the voice. Let's make something great together. WLCR 91. Welcome to WLCR 91.1. Lake Country Radio. This is Larry Fels, serving the greater communities of Heartland, Delafield, Pewaukee, Nashotah, Stone Bank, Chiniquah, North Lake, You know what? I'm not reading every jack in any town in the fucking county. You people know where you live. Half you sons of whores are probably in a Economawalk playing bags league. Aren't whales. I got nothing against whales. Rainy Waymo hide. Rainy Waymo hide. And where the Covahogas. Rainy Waymo hide. Hold on, I need a goddamn drink. Speaking Welsh hurt my throat. Blugga blum shawa, nice. Grape White Claw. That's the stuff. Any woozle. This is Lake Country, a place where you can fire automatic weapons in your backyard, but you can't leave a couch on your front curb because remember, everything is emergency. Urgency over accuracy. Freedom. So tune your dials all the way left because, as you already know, 911 is greater than 411. 911, 411. Do the math. We are 500 more, right? Right. Once again, this is Lake Country Radio. And I'm Larry Fels. That's fella like chopping through bullshit. There's only one E in my last name, so don't be saying I feel squat. And from yesterday's news, we are. You know what? Mersh read the...
Hi, I'm goddamn copy. Okay. Far fucking out, man. I get to read the news to the dudes, brah. Let's G go, Dave. Yeah, check it out, brother. This is neat. So, I'm Mersh. And yesterday, whatever. This totally happened. Visiting liberal arts major drowns in assholes at Okauchee tie-up by Cynthia Rutherford. Yeah, Cynthia. What up, Ms. Rutherford? Solidarity, sister. So it looks like this happened at Party Island. Well, it seems like it's that time of year again. If you noticed an uptick in geometrical sunburn patterns, offbeat dancing, and generalized indoor scream talking after 10 p.m. over the weekend, you were not alone. That's right. Yesterday, the doldrums of summer brought to our shores the annual Okauchee Lake tie-up, and with it, as always, a fresh corpse. The yearly return functioning with the predictability of the swallows of Capistrano, except fucking gross. This year's ceremonial sacrifice to the Dionysian gods of excessive drinking, insufficient clothing, and regressive behavior came in the form of Jarrett McCormick, 23, a liberal arts major and aspiring conceptual instrumentalist from Wellesley College in Massachusetts. Authorities from the Okauchee DPW, namely Ryan Eberly on his Sunday morning weed bar shift, discovered the wildly overdressed Matt Cormick floating face down in the cove frequented by the annual Grove Flotilla. When asked about the impact of his ghastly 5 a.m. discovery of a body, EB's 31 explained that while he's gotten used to fishing dead out-of-town dipshits out of the milfoil and hydrilla with this hook stick, he was nonetheless shocked to find one fully clothed in heavy black denim and some sort of, like a jacket you'd wear to court for your first DUI and shit. You should have seen the shoes. Big heavy bastards with thick black soles. Normally me and old Jerry can hoist the bikini co-eds out if one of us gets in the water, but we just used this water ski rope to drag this fella back to the launch at Hideaway's pub. You just gotta loop him around the middle and go slow. No wake. On shore at the aforementioned hideaways, LC-911 attempted to interview witnesses to the drowning of the Wellesley Jr. from amongst the Crass Menagerie of buoyant revelers and water sport enthusiasts. Wesley? Yeah, I met him. You didn't say his name was Wesley Jr., though, said B-Rad Johnston around 7 p.m. Sunday. That wouldn't have surprised me. Fucking douche. He was trying to run game on Handjob Annie and that girl with the knockers, you know, the one who was wearing the grass skirt like a tube top. Anyways, yeah, I fell in between them when I tried to jump from Tristan's boat to the party barge that had the margarita bongs, the ones you drink out of the plastic flamingos, and I heard him talking about Blizz Blaz and him ham or whatever, and I'm like, yeah. That ain't gonna work, brah. Don't nobody read books no more. Especially not these knob polishers. Fuck you, Brad, said Ann Helgenstamp, also on hand at hideaways, upon hearing the use of her well-worn moniker. I gave your 3-incher a tug once in 9th grade in the band room, and you came in your pleated khakis in like 10 seconds. Little B-Rad be like a roll of certs. Becca, that's my friend in the hula top. She told me she gave you a lap dance under the bimini top on Jake's boat, and you puked on her back after she said she took a crap while floating underneath the DJ raft. Ha ha ha. Subsequent witnesses garnered no additional details as to the time, place, or nature of the post-colonial lit crit major's aquatic demise, but LC 911 was present to witness the traditional culmination of the tie-up's festivities at sundown on Sunday. The most crafty and cogent of the standing date rapists slashed together a makeshift pyre out of duct tape and warm domestic beer cans cold from the coolers, and with what solemnity they could muster, after nearly 46 hours of sustained alcohol consumption, doused Mac Cormick's body with the remaining pre-mixed two-stroke gas from their red plastic jerry cans and set it on fire, gently pushing the deceased dilettante from Hideaway's dock as the chorus of "To Wesley" was shouted before the final shotgun beers and shot skis brought the customary bacchanal to its rightful close for the season. The flames, along with Mac Cormick's dreams, were eventually consumed by the algae bloom of Okauchee, which is strangely high this year, as the final benediction was delivered by the pulsating bass of a Shabuzi song and a phalanx of twerkers. Like, that's a bummer that smart kid died and all, but I'm bummed. I missed the tie-up this year, man. Shit sounds like it was a rager. You know what? Last year, I totally got him robbed off from that Annie chick near the grease traps out behind Weisgerber's Golden Mask. But don't tell anyone, you know. Dave, let's skedaddle and burn one down, bro. We can probably catch the evening waves at P-Dub Public Beach if we jam. This has been Lake Country Radio, and I has been Mersh Peace.
Intellectual discourse.
The Okauchee Lake tie-up in Wisconsin has long stood as a flashpoint where the local lake culture of the Midwest collides with external perceptions of class and academia, often
I grew up on the crime side, my weight on fire skates. No question I was speed for cracks and weed. The combination made my eyes bleed. No question I would flow off and try to get the flow off. Shaking up right boys on board.
in narratives that border on the surreal. The recent reporting by Cynthia Rutherford on the death of Jarrett McCormick, a Wellesley College student found during the annual festival, serves as a stark entry point into a much larger conversation about the cultural and socioeconomic divisions that define these specific inland water spaces.
It's a heavy way to start, but that report highlights a very real tension. Okauchee Lake isn't just a body of water, it's a social ecosystem. The tie-up, which usually happens the last Saturday of July, draws hundreds of boats, pontoons, speedboats, personal watercraft, all lashed together in these massive grope flotillas, as Rutherford calls them. It's a high-octane, alcohol-fueled tradition that sits right in the middle of a fairly affluent but culturally distinct part of Waukesha County.
The way McCormick was described stands out because it frames him as the ultimate outsider. He's a liberal arts major from an elite East Coast school, found wearing heavy black denim and a jacket described as something you'd wear to a DUI court date. He's the conceptual instrumentalist in a sea of B-rads and margarita bongs. Does this tragedy reflect a genuine cultural incompatibility, or is the narrative being shaped to emphasize that town and gown divide?
There's definitely a level of performative friction there. When you look at the quotes from local figures like Ryan Eberl, who works the weed barge, there's a weary, almost cynical familiarity with out-of-towners getting into trouble. He talks about fishing bodies out of the milfoil and hydrilla, two very real invasive species that plague Okauchee and other Wisconsin lakes. The local perspective often views these visitors as tourists who don't understand the lake's rules, its physical dangers, or its specific brand of etiquette.
The inclusion of specific invasive species like Eurasian water milfoil is interesting because it ties the human chaos to the biological health of the lake. These plants form thick mats that can actually make swimming or even moving a boat dangerous. If someone like McCormick, who isn't familiar with that environment, ends up in the water, those weeds aren't just an ecological nuisance, they're a physical trap.
Exactly, and the environmental impact of the tie-up itself is significant. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources has noted that high boat traffic stirs up lakebed sediments, releasing phosphorus, which triggers the blue-green algae blooms mentioned in the report. When Rutherford describes McCormick's dreams being consumed by the algae bloom, she's touching on a literal environmental crisis. These blooms aren't just gross, they can be toxic. The sheer density of human activity during that weekend accelerates the eutrophication of the lake.
Let's look closer at the socioeconomic layering. Okauchee has a history as a resort destination for Milwaukee and Chicago elites dating back to the 1800s. It even had a reputation for hosting gangsters during Prohibition at Wants Island Park. Today, it's a mix of high-value riparian properties and public access points that bring. It even had a reputation for hosting gangsters during Prohibition at Wants Island Park. Today, it's a mix of high-value riparian properties and public access points that bring in a much broader crowd. The tie-up seems to be the one time a year when all those different worlds are forced into a single crowded cove.
And that's where the friction turns into something more aggressive. The language used by the witnesses in the report, the references to blizzblaze and him-ham, is a direct mockery of academic or intellectual discourse. There's a pride in the rejection of book learning in favor of the immediate visceral experience of the party. It's a classic anti-intellectual stance that crops up when a community feels its space is being invaded by people they perceive as looking down on them.
But isn't there a paradox there? The revelers are often quite wealthy themselves. They're on expensive boats, after all. It's not necessarily a struggle between the rich and the poor, but between two different types of cultural capital. You have the liberal arts elite versus the lake life elite. The B-rads of the world might have a $60,000 wake boat, but they're defining themselves against the perceived pretension of a Wellesley student.
That's a sharp distinction. It's about lifestyle as an identity. On Okauchee, status is measured by your boat's sound system or your ability to navigate the social hierarchy of Hideaway's Pub or the Golden Mast. When McCormick shows up overdressed in black denim, he's committing a cardinal sin of lake culture. He's not blending in. He's a walking symbol of an outside world that values different things. And in the high-stress, low-inhibition environment, when McCormick shows up overdressed in black denim, he's committing a cardinal sin of lake culture. He's not blending in. He's a walking symbol of an outside world that values different things. And in the high-stress, low-inhibition environment of a tie-up, that makes him a target for derision.
The report ends with this almost ritualistic scene, a makeshift pyre of beer cans and a shotgunned beer send-off. It sounds like something out of a modern-day Lord of the Flies. It raises a question about the safety and regulation of these events. If this is an annual occurrence with a predictability of a ceremonial sacrifice, where is the oversight?
The oversight is actually quite intense, which makes the chaos even more interesting. The Lake Management District and the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department run heavy patrols. In 2017, for instance, there was a strict slow no wake order because of high water levels. There are OWI arrests every year, but the scale of the tie-up, sometimes 500 boats or more, makes it nearly impossible to police every interaction. The bacchanal, as it's described, is a force of nature that the authorities mostly just try to contain to the water.
There's also the psychological element of the tie-up itself. Physically lashing boats together creates a temporary floating city. It's a communal experience, but it also creates a mob mentality. People are jumping from boat to boat, often belonging to strangers. It's an environment where social norms are suspended. In that context, the othering of someone like McCormick happens almost instantly. He isn't just a person, he's a representative of everything the crowd is trying to escape for the weekend.
And the irony is that McCormick was reportedly trying to run game, to participate in the very culture that eventually mocked him. He was trying to bridge that gap and failed. The witnesses like Handjob Annie and B. Rad aren't just recounting it. He was trying to bridge that gap and failed. Witnesses like Handjob Annie and B. Rad aren't just recounting a death, they're policing the boundaries of their subculture. They're saying, you don't belong here, and even in death, we're going to treat you as a punchline.
It's a brutal narrative. Even the publisher's note at the end, a snippet of Old Norse from the Havamal, adds this bizarre layer of Viking fatalism. Der fe, deja frander, cattle die, kinsmen die, you yourself must die. It frames the whole thing as an inevitable cycle of nature. Fe, deja frander, cattle die, kinsmen die, you yourself must die. It frames the whole thing. Fe, deja frander, cattle die, kinsmen die, you yourself must die. It frames the whole thing as an inevitable cycle of nature and human folly. It suggests that as long as there's a lake and a summer, there will be a tee-up, and there will be these clashes.
It also highlights the dark side of localism. There's a protective element to it, sure, people wanting to preserve their traditions, but it can easily curdle into a kind of casual cruelty toward the outsider. The way the body was handled, being dragged back to the launch with a ski rope, no wake, shows a total lack of sanctity. The lake's rules of navigation were followed more closely than any protocol for the deceased.
We should also consider the role of the reporting itself. Cynthia Rutherford's tone is incredibly biting. She isn't just reporting a drowning, she's satirizing the entire event and everyone involved. By calling it a ceremonial sacrifice and a crass menagerie, she's placing herself above the fray. It's a double-edged sword. The report mocks the B-Rads for their behavior, but it also mocks McCormick for his pretension and for being out of his element.
Satire often functions that way. It punches in all directions. It exposes the absurdity of the tie-up, the ecological damage, the excessive drinking, and the regressive social dynamics. But it also highlights the vulnerability of the liberal arts archetype when it tries to engage with a world that doesn't value its currency. McCormick's denim and instrumentalist background were his armor in Massachusetts, but on Okauchee, they were his lead weights.
So what's the broader takeaway? Is Okauchee Lake a microcosm of a divided America, or is it just a specific weird tradition that shouldn't be overanalyzed? It feels like it's both. You have the literal environmental degradation, the phosphorus, the invasive milfoil, mirrored by a kind of cultural degradation where empathy is replaced by tribalism.
I think the takeaway is that these temporary autonomous zones like the tie-up reveal the rawest parts of our social structure. When you remove the walls of the office or the classroom and put everyone on a boat with a cooler of beer, the hierarchies don't disappear, they just change shape. The person who is the smartest in one room becomes the douche in another. And the consequences, as we saw with McCormick, can be unexpectedly permanent.
It also forces us to look at how we treat the other in our own spaces. Whether it's a lake in Wisconsin or a college campus in the East, the impulse to mock what we don't understand or what makes us feel insecure is powerful. The B-Rads and the Jarretts of the world are often just mirrors for one another, each convinced of their own superiority while floating in the same algae-filled water.
The environment itself might have the last word, though. As the report mentions, the algae bloom is strangely high this year. Nature doesn't care about your GPA or how many flamingos you can drink out of. It just responds to the chemicals we put into it. If the tie-up continues to degrade the lake, eventually there won't be a party island left to fight over.
That's a sobering thought to end on. A cycle of human conflict playing out on a stage that's slowly being destroyed by the very festivities that define it. It's a tragedy in more ways than one, from the loss of a young life to the slow death of an ecosystem, all set to the pulsating bass of a Shabuzi song.
It's a reminder that even our escapes have costs, socially, culturally, and environmentally. The tie-up will likely happen again next year, the boats will lash together, and the stories will continue, but the milfoil and the algae will be there waiting.
It really is a case where the surface level of the party hides much deeper, darker currents. If you found this exploration of the intersection between lake culture and social